everyone, it's been a long time since I've done a review for a TurboGrafx game, so here is Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes for the TurboGrafx Super CD-ROM. This turn-based role-playing game was developed by Nihon Falcom and was originally released for the NEC PC 8801 in Japan in 1989 and released in North America in 1992. This was the sixth game in the Dragon Slayer series, which was released for various computer systems, and this is the first in the Legend of Heroes series, which saw numerous sequels released in North America for the Sony PSP. Dragon Slayer is set in the world of Isranasa, which is divided into 5 kingdoms: Farlane, Wingard, Norland, Sordis, and Mortavia. I'll let the narrator tell you the rest of the story.
Of the 5, Farlane prospered under the rule of King Corwin the Just. But it was a prosperity that ended on the night of the 7th moon, when Farlane's capital, Sylvan, was unexpectedly invaded by a horde of savage monsters. Battered and confused from the surprise attack, the soldiers of Farlane were unable to prevent the monsters from entering the castle walls. Despite the seemingly hopeless situation, Farlane prevailed. And by the break of dawn, not a monster remained standing. However, the joys of victory were short-lived. For King Corwin was dead, leaving Farlane without a leader. Shortly thereafter, Baron Drax assumed the regency in place of Prince Logan, Corwin's son, who was considered to be too young to inherit the throne. To ensure the safety of the young prince, Logan was sent to the village of exile on the Isle of Glen. There, he was to stay until his 16th birthday, when he could finally be crowned king. That was 10 years ago.
Now I'll take it from here. The game begins with the main protagonist, Prince Logan, in the village of exile as he prepares for his 16th birthday and his coronation as ruler of Farlane. Dissatisfied with hanging around the village, Logan, with the help of one of the townsfolk, escapes the village to engage in some slime bashing. When he returns to the village, Elias, Logan's guardian, is upset and, like any parent, lectures him on the importance of knowledge. After Logan retires for the night, the village is invaded by hordes of monsters. Elias has Logan escape through a secret passageway while he and his guards attempt to fight off the horde. While Logan escapes, he heads to Castle Sylvan to seek out reinforcements. Once he arrives at the castle, he is apprehended by the guards and is sent to Baron Drax. Here it's revealed that Drax was responsible for the attack on Sylvan 10 years ago, which resulted in the death of Logan's father, King Corwin. Drax wants to assume the mantle himself permanently, which requires the marriage of Logan's mother. In the meantime, Logan is sent to prison. He is later freed by Ethan, who broke into the prison and took out the guards. At this point, you will join up with a rebellion to overthrow Baron Drax's rule of Farlane. After you liberate Farlane, Baron Drax flees and causes havoc on the other kingdoms, even going as far as kidnapping Logan's bride-to-be, Princess Micah. Despite losing the throne, Drax has his sights set on conquering all of Isranasa. To achieve this, he seeks out the Jewels of Doom, which is said to contain great powers. It's up to you to stop him. Dragon Slayer is broken up into 6 chapters, with each one set in a different part of Isranasa. Each kingdom is in turmoil, whether it be from monsters, thieves, or other problems. Of course, it's up to you to take care of everything, because that's what we do in role-playing games. Progressing through each chapter requires you to complete an assortment of quests and tasks requested by townsfolk and other non-playable characters you come across. In this game, you really have to pay attention to the dialogue, otherwise it's very easy to get stuck. You'll often have to revisit areas multiple times in order to complete a quest. Make sure you revisit NPCs after you complete a quest. Some of them will offer you a reward. There will be areas that are inaccessible unless you have a specific item necessary to get through. There is one area in the game that you need to watch out for that can cost you dearly in a literal sense if you're not well prepared. Throughout your pursuit of Drax, you'll have characters which play key roles in the game's story that'll join and leave your party. At certain points in the game's plot, you'll be treated to spoken dialogue to take advantage of the CD's capabilities.
Who dares invade the halls of my castle? Have you taken leave of your senses? Are you aware that you're now face to face with Strom the Untamed, the conqueror of Wingard? It If so, may the Seeker help you. Because believe me, you will need all the help you can get.
You'll visit towns, caves, and other locations in Nisranasa by land, sea, and air. To help you navigate, you have items such as the Seeker Eye, which shows you a map of the area that you're currently in. The Seeker Orb has the same function as the Seeker Eye, but it can be used infinitely. Caves are poorly lit, so you'll need a torch to see where you're going. When time passes, the light radius from the torch decreases, so make sure you have extra ones handy because the torches wear out rather quickly and some of the caves are spacious. You can get a lantern which can be used infinite times and the light radius will never decrease. You also have warp items and spells that allow you to return to the most recently visited town or to any location you've been to. Not all warp items and spells work if you're inside a cave or a tower. What's a role-playing game without fighting enemies? Dragon Slayer has a wide assortment of enemies including ghouls, soldiers, beasts, mutated plants, and insects. Enemies have many abilities besides basic attacks including healing, summoning other monsters, or casting various spells. You do have enemies that are immune to melee attacks, so make sure you have attack spells available, otherwise you'll be forced to run from battle. For the most part, enemy battles are fairly simple as long as you have powerful enough equipment and are at a high enough level, though boss battles do require more careful planning. Enemies can sometimes leave items or weapons and armor, some of which cannot be purchased in shops. You have many options available during battle, which is self-explanatory. Party members and enemies can suffer from a variety of status ailments such as poison, which will leave you paralyzed and then knocked out after a few turns if not cured. Sleep causes extra damage taken when attacked, mute disables spell casting, and chaos causes a character to perform random actions. Be aware of the abilities of each enemy and take out the ones that are most troublesome first. If a party member is knocked out when the battle ends, or if the party flees, he or she will be revived with 1 hit point. If all party members are defeated, you have the option to restart the battle or return to the previous town visited without any loss in experience points gained from the previous save point. If you flee from battle when you're in the field, the enemy icon will appear and move around. When you're inside caves and towers, enemies are always visible so you can dodge them. Be careful if you're in areas on the map that have dead ends or narrow passageways. You can get trapped and then you're forced to enter battle. There are items both temporary and permanent that allow you to see all enemies moving around the field. This is useful if you want to navigate from one area to the next without having to fight anyone. An interesting thing of note is that when you complete a chapter, all enemies within that part of the kingdom disappear, so you'll be free to roam around without fear of running into monsters. One of the unique features of Dragon Slayer is the customization of the characters in your party. They are not locked into specific classes, though characters like Marcus and Sonia start out with high amounts of magic points and have powerful spells. The two areas of customization are the assigning of skill points to your attributes and magic spells. When you gain a level, your hit points and magic points are restored to max and your 4 attributes, strength, intelligence, speed, and luck, increase by a set number of points. These points can be assigned to your attributes manually or they can be done automatically if you want to save time. In some areas you will meet a sage who will give you an assortment of spells. These spells include Curing, Elemental, Warping, Status Ailment, and Attribute Enhancement. The further along you go in the game, the available spells become more powerful. There is one area in the game where you can pick up every spell possible, but I'm not telling you where it is or how to get there. Any character can use any spell, though you are limited to a maximum of 7 spells per character, so it's up to you to pick out what spells work best for your party. Everyone in a party should have a curing spell, and I prefer to have other useful spells like sleep and revive assigned to at least 2 characters. You can take a break from the action by playing a couple of mini-games. One of them is a game that is identical to Othello. Each player takes turns placing black and white rocks on an 8x8 board. During a play, any rocks of the opponent's color that are in a straight line and bounded by the rock just placed and another rock of the current player's color are turned over to the current player's color. The object of the game is to have the majority of rocks turned to display your color when the last playable empty square is filled. I've never been able to win this game, so I don't know what the reward is for winning, but if you lose, you get access to spells you can assign to your party. You also have a game where you take turns with an NPC stabbing a barrel with 6 holes in it. The object of the game is to avoid stabbing the hole that will cause a pirate's head to pop up. If you win, you will receive an item. You can keep the item or wager it and play the game again. If you win a game, you'll get even a better item. You can keep on going in hopes of getting something even bigger, but if you lose, you get nothing. Dragon Slayer The Legend of Heroes was one of my earliest entries into role-playing games and thus has a special place amongst my favorite RPGs. By no means is Dragon Slayer perfect, and there are RPGs that came out afterwards that offer a lot more, but I've had great memories of playing and beating this game many times when I first got it in 1993, and I enjoyed playing through it again for this review. The one thing about this game that has always stood out for me was the soundtrack. Like many of the CD games for the TurboGrafx, I have the soundtrack saved on my MP3 player. You have a great mix of music which fit the environments very well, with triumphant music playing when you're in a castle after it's been cleared of monsters, eerie tunes when you're inside a cave, and somber music playing when you're in dungeons or abandoned areas. There is electric guitar mixed in with some of these tracks. There's an option to run some of the tracks in chiptune music, which will reduce load times, but I prefer using the CD soundtrack. The game moves at a very fast pace by allowing fast movement of your party when navigating and quick scrolling of messages, especially during battles, which will drastically reduce the amount of time spent level grinding, which you do a lot of in this game. The load times between battles are very minimal. Because of this, Dragon Slayer will take less time to complete than most other RPGs, which is great if you don't have a lot of time to spend on one game. For this review, I completed the game in under 9 hours, but like I mentioned earlier, I've beaten this game many times, so it'll take a few extra hours if you haven't played this before. I like the amount of customization in this game. You have the option to assign skill points in any way you wish when you level up, and I like that any character can use any spell in the game. You don't feel restricted in that aspect. There are no restrictions when it comes to equipping weapons and armor. While you have lots of options in the battle menu, it's nothing complicated, and you have a nice mix of enemies that have many ways to attack you. Though there aren't many cutscenes, they are well detailed and colorful with some nice animation. Dragon Slayer has lots of spoken dialogue, though the voice acting is far from perfect, but then this was the early years of voice acting in video games, so I'll give it a pass. The graphics are not the most impressive. Half the screen is taken up by the stats of your party members. It would have been nice to see some backgrounds during the enemy battles and animations when you cast spells or when the enemies attack. There are times when it can be a bit confusing as to where you have to go next, which can be annoying, but then that's how RPGs were back then. While Dragon Slayer was released for many consoles over the years, the Turbo Duo version was the only one to get an English release, thus this game can be expensive to obtain these days. If you own a Duo and enjoy RPGs, I recommend getting this game. I hope you enjoyed this review, and as always, thanks for watching.